Picture this. It's 2 a.m., right in the dead center of the vast, unforgiving Thar Desert. The air is completely still, the silence is honestly deafening, and you're standing in a place where time itself just seems to have frozen. Welcome to our explainer, where we're going to dissect the myth of India's most haunted village, Kuldhara. We are going to peel back the layers of a 200-year-old mystery today and separate spine-chilling folklore from cold, hard, documented history.
Okay, so let's just dive right into this. Did 80,000 people really vanish in a single night? Because that's what the legend says. An entire population gone without a trace, overnight. To really grasp the sheer scale of this myth, we've got to talk about a frankly chilling paranormal investigation from 2013. A team was wrapping up their night in this completely deserted village, and as they walked back to their vehicles, tiny handprints, like those of a 4 or 5-year-old child, suddenly materialized in the dust on their car bonnets. Now keep in mind, this village hasn't had human inhabitants for over 2 centuries. There were absolutely no children around. Actually, there wasn't a living soul for miles. And the craziest part? When journalists arrived a bit later, the exact same handprints started appearing on their cars too.
And honestly, that incident is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the haunting of Kuldhara. We're talking about more than 400 abandoned homes, complete with untouched streets, temples, and wells, uninhabited by humans for over 200 years. It's this incredibly eerie physical remnant of a once thriving society. The folklore surrounding the place is so potent that tourists are strictly forbidden from staying past 6 p.m. Visitors and investigators constantly report bizarre things: the smell of food cooking in a barren wasteland, disembodied screams, and legends of sudden dramatic temperature drops, like plunging to -2 degrees Celsius in a single isolated spot. But, to find the actual root of these ghost stories, we have to look at a very real and very terrifying historical figure.
Section 1. The Cruel Dewan's Curse. To find the truth of Kuldhara, we really must travel back to the early 1800s, to a time when true terrifying power lay in the hands of Jaisalmer's prime minister. Through incredibly brutal taxation policies that just crushed farmers and traders alike, this prime minister, Salim Singh, extorted an unfathomable fortune, roughly 2 crore rupees. Let's just think about that for a second. 2 crore rupees back in the early 1800s. It's wild. He ruled the region with an absolute iron fist. The official king at the time, Ral Muraj, he was basically nothing more than a puppet. Salim Singh was the true, undisputed dictator of the desert, and he was acting out this lifelong vendetta after witnessing his own father's assassination when he was just a kid.
So how does Salim Singh's cruelty intersect with Kuldhara? Well, according to the famous local folklore, he set his sights on the Kuldhara village chief's daughter and demanded to marry her. He issued this horrifying ultimatum: hand over the village chief's daughter in 1 day, or the entire village will be massacred. Knowing they couldn't possibly fight his massive armed forces, the villagers allegedly chose a third option. The story goes that on the night of July 29, 1825, the residents of Kuldhara, along with 83 neighboring villages, just packed up and vanished overnight, leaving behind a curse that no one would ever be able to settle on their land again.
Section 2. Miracle in the Desert. Because before they were legendary ghosts, these residents were incredibly real agricultural geniuses who had migrated here way back in the 13th century. And what they accomplished was frankly nothing short of impossible. You really have to remember the geography we're talking about here. The Thar Desert reaches scorching temperatures, 40 to 50 degrees Celsius, with almost non-existent rainfall. Yet, the Paliwal Brahmins developed the Kadeen system. This was a revolutionary water harvesting technique, using hill slopes to collect and store seasonal rain. They essentially figured out how to turn completely barren desert sand into highly fertile, nutrient-rich soil. Let's walk through exactly how they pulled off this desert agriculture miracle. Step 1. They used natural hill slopes to meticulously collect and pool whatever sparse rainfall they actually got. Step 2. They allowed this pooled water to slowly seep underground over several months. By the time winter arrived and the surface water had evaporated, the ground underneath was incredibly nutrient-rich. And step 3, they used this soil to grow not 1, but 2 crops a year right in the middle of a desert.
Combine this kind of agricultural mastery with their deep expertise in trade routes and banking, and the Paliwal Brahmins actually became wealthier and more prosperous than the kings in the capital city of Jaisalmer itself.
Section 3. Uncovering the historical truth. So how does a society that incredibly successful just disappear? Well, in 2017, a peer-reviewed scientific study came out claiming a massive earthquake was the real culprit.
But let's break down why the earthquake theory versus historical reality doesn't really hold up. The initial theory argued that fallen roofs and pillars were proof of seismic activity from active faults. But look at the historical reality. There are zero records of a quake in Jaisalmer around 1825. Sure, there was one in 1819 and another way later in 1905, but absolutely nothing that aligns with a sudden mass exodus. Furthermore, think about it. Earthquakes aren't exactly selective, right? If a massive quake destroyed Kuldhara, the nearby non-Paliwal villages should have been totally devastated too, but they were completely untouched. And honestly, the most convincing part, the walls of Kuldhara are still perfectly aligned against each other today. If a massive village-destroying earthquake had hit, you definitely see severe cracks and major gaps in those walls.
And then we have the official British census records, which completely shatter the whole vanished in one night myth. Look at Kuldhara's true population decline. This data comes straight from the official records of a British officer, Colonel James Todd, who documented the region back then. At its peak in the 17th century, Kuldhara had about 1588 residents. But look at 1815. That is a full 10 years before the supposed overnight vanishing. The population had already dropped to 800 people. Half the village was already gone. And the decline just continued for decades. Even by 1890, historical records show 37 people were still living there. So it wasn't magic, guys. It was just a slow, painful, and gradual decline.
So what were the real causes of abandonment? What actually drove them out? Well, the real tragedy is grounded in harsh environmental and political realities. First, their primary water source, the nearby Kekak River, was dammed up and eventually dried up completely. Without the river, the groundwater stopped recharging, and by 1815, their vital groundwater wells had completely run dry. Farming became impossible. At the exact same time, regional security totally collapsed, which closed the trade routes that had fueled all their banking wealth. Add to that the oppressive taxation from Diwan Salim Singh and violent raids from bandits who would literally kidnap local women for ransom. The Paliwal Brahmins didn't vanish into thin air. They were forced into a voluntary, heartbreaking exile just to survive.
Section 4. Psychology and hidden treasure. Okay, so if the ghosts aren't real, why do modern-day tourists still experience the paranormal? It actually comes down to the human mind.
It all boils down to a psychological phenomenon called pareidolia. Basically, our human brains are hardwired to find patterns. When you visit a place that you've repeatedly been told is the most haunted village in India, you enter with massive confirmation bias. Suddenly, your brain takes completely random, ambiguous stimuli, like a gust of desert wind, a shadow cast by a shifting cloud, or a faulty motion sensor, and forces it into a familiar pattern. A breeze becomes a scream, a shadow becomes a spirit. You end up experiencing exactly what you went in expecting to experience.
But here is the ultimate twist in our explainer. Why did the locals allow and even actively encourage these ghost stories to spread in the first place? Well, the real motive behind the ghost stories wasn't the supernatural. It was something entirely human: greed. For decades, these stories were intentionally amplified to keep curious tourists and ordinary people far away from the ruins after dark.
Because beneath the dust, there was actual real treasure. The wealthy Paliwal Brahmins left behind buried gold and silver when they fled. For years, thieves used the cover of the ghost curse to scavenge the ruins at night. And it all came to a head in the 1998 treasure incident. Step 1. A local watchman named Sumaram, who was actually living in one of the ruins, spotted intruders in the dead of night. Step 2. It turned out to be Dutch and German tourists armed with metal detectors wandering the ruins. Step 3. These intruders were literally unearthing buried ancient Paliwal gold and silver coins. Step 4. Sumaram called the police, the thieves were arrested, and the loot was seized. It actually sits in the custody of the Jaisalmer court to this day. It proves that the real monsters haunting Kuldhara in the dark weren't spirits at all. They were just thieves. So as we wrap up today, I really want you to reflect on this question. Was the true magic of Kuldhara the ghosts or the people who made the desert bloom? The ghost stories are definitely thrilling, for sure, but they completely overshadow a much more profound truth. The real magic wasn't some overnight vanishing act or phantom handprints appearing on a car. The true magic was the sheer human resilience of the Paliwal Brahmins, these brilliant innovators who defied nature to grow wealth and food in a barren wasteland. So the next time you hear about a cursed village, ask yourself, what incredible human history is hiding just beneath the myth?